they had to bring us back for another episode, baby. But we have a new host on this show, man, all the way from Cleveland, Ohio. He is the mayor of Loudville, Austin Cook, baby. What's going on, baby?
Dude, what an intro. I was not expecting that. I'm loving it. Loving that intro.
And
I feel like he stuttered on that.
No, I didn't stutter as shit.
He's just like, Austin, boom.
Nah, bro, he did better than what I would have
No,
done.
because you know why? Because I was about to say cock, and I didn't want to say cock. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say.
The man respects me. It's all right.
I didn't want to say, but all the way in
Mike,
Akron,
you can't
Ohio,
speak like that.
Standing at 5'10", looking like his barber hasn't seen him in years.
5'10", you're being nice.
What's going on, baby?
He said Barbara hasn't seen you in years. Yep. It's like my man Chris would say, shout out to him. It's looking like a scene out of Pursuit of Happiness out here.
Oh my God. He's about to cry and say thank you for the job. And I am your always illustrious host, Michael Itam Shanuti, the Pharaoh. And you know what we do? We hoop and we holler around here. So we'll just get straight right into it, boys. I mean, coming from DC, I mean, Austin, you said it. DC sports, if you take the last 3 years, we were a shit show. But there hasn't been a shit show.
Wait, did you only take it back 3 years?
I mean, it's only 3 years.
Please enlighten me on what DC has been good for past those 3 years that you just brought up.
No. I said
before the 3 years he's talking about.
I'm saying before the 3 years.
Okay, before the Stanley Cup. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Caps win the Stanley Cup. The Nationals win an improbable World Series because the Astros cheat more than R. Kelly on his wife with 15-year-old girls.
That's a good one.
So I mean, like all those, and then you had XFL going. I mean, DC sports kind of was rocky there. I mean, you got the Redskins who don't know how to basically play football at all.
Redskins the only franchise to have a player that would be like, hey, I just do not trust the guys that look after me, that care for my well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah, but hey, DC was rocking again this year though, because Capitals were looking very nice going into this pause, whatever the heck's happening in the NHL as well as what's happening in the NBA. But the Capitals were looking nice there too. Maybe you guys were gonna do some even year magic.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Alexander Ovechkin looked like he had a touch of gray in his hair, and he was ready to fuck shit up. And I mean, this is not a hockey podcast, but I will say this: I would have been pleasantly surprised if we didn't make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's all I'm gonna say. If we didn't, that's a big praise. But there is a team that I know for a fact would never make it to their finals, and that is the worst grand franchise in the last 30 years, the Washington Wizards. And the reason why I say that is, how do you have the collection of talent that comes through that building and you cannot win the amount of games that you're supposed to win? You had the Agent Zero incident with Gilbert Arenas. You had Antoine Jameson. You had Caron Butler. You had John Wall.
Kwame Brown.
Bradley Beal. You have all these players, and you can't do anything. And Austin, I said I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, go.
Was this the LeBron effect? Was LeBron just too good for the Wizards and fucked them so hard that they don't know how to do anything?
I don't mean to burst that bubble before you get to Austin, but if it's the LeBron effect, you're also talking about a franchise that hasn't won over 50 games in 41 years. But go ahead.
No, I mean,
LeBron wasn't even a thought.
LeBron was like the dragon in Game of Thrones. He was just there to fuck shit up at that. No, he was just everything was fucked.
Dude, there's something in the water in DC. It's because you guys stars can't.
In Australia too.
Hey, but your guys stars can't stay healthy. That's not LeBron's fault that no one stayed healthy ever. Like, you had good talent there. Like you said, the Gilbert Arenas thing. First of all, that 05-06 battle between the Cavs in that first round, where like all games were decided by I think 5 points or less. It was just insane. I remember that as a Cavs fan watching that because that was like the first time that the Cavs were like on a grand stage too. And then 06-07, 3 straight years you guys played the Cavs in the first round, and that is demoralizing to get beat by a 21, 22, and 23-year-old LeBron with scrubs on his team. But You guys had injuries in 06 and 07. You still were able to make it. In 07 and 08, you guys had really bad injuries. So I don't think it's the franchise's fault that your guys' key players can't stay healthy. However, you also did very bad at acquiring talent to help your star players. Like even now, you guys have, or not saying you guys, because I mean you're from DC, but like you guys got Bradley Beal now, and you got John Wall. You got great talent, immense talent, but there's just no one around them, and it's not a free agent town. You never hear a big free agent going like, you know what, I want to go to DC. I mean, as a Clevelander, I can say that too because it was the same thing without LeBron. Nobody wants to come here too. That's why small market teams in the NBA need to draft well, or they're not going to be in it.
Ellis, what do you think, my man?
I mean, when I think of the Wizards, I try to look at their best players, okay? And then you draft John Wall in 2010. He's coming off hot out of Kentucky. You think he's going to do something big, okay? All right, what's his ceiling? From the front office standpoint, what do you realistically think John Wall is going to give you each and every night? From his rookie season going in, I think he finishes his rookie season at 16 and what was it? 16 and
what are you talking about? His stat line?
16 and 8. So he goes 16 and 8. He's a 16 and 8 guy for the first about 3-4 years. He goes up to 19 points. So realistically, his ceiling goes to a 2010 guy. So you go off from John Wall. I think he's a game changer, but I don't see the superstar in him. I think at best you get a poor man's Russell Westbrook, a 2010 guy who's not. But I say a poor man's Russell Westbrook because he's not really crashing the boards. I think the most he ever averaged board wise was a little bit over 4.5 boards a game throughout the seasons.
Ellis, I think you're having a Derrick Rose effect on him though, because before his injuries, dude, John Wall was just as athletic. Yeah, he wasn't racking up the boards, but he's not poor man's. I mean, I think athletic-wise, he's right up there with Russell Westbrook.
I think he's poor man's because there's a big stat that I think people don't really look into in basketball, and I look into it a lot, is the win share stat. And the win share, for people that listen at home that don't know what the win share stat is, it's basically a stat that's based upon how many games that person's going to win for you. And throughout John Wall's career, he only led in win shares once, and that was a year after his rookie year at a measly 3.5. That was the least amount of win shares that was won over that in the span of the Wizards for the last 16 years. So I think when you go and look at it from Bradley Beal taking over lately, Bradley Beal's led in win shares the past 2 years without John Wall. So I think it's a testament that you go through all these players and it's like, okay, where's John Wall at on the win share market? He's not really winning you these games. Marcin Gortat throughout these all is winning these games, and it tells me why is Gortat winning these games? Well, is because there's no jumper there, and we can get into that.
I mean,
but that's not a. Sorry, go ahead, Shinny.
No, I'm just gonna tell Ellis this. Well, you talk about John Wall as the player, right? They honestly, when the Wizards drafted John Wall, they knew what they were getting. They were getting an athletic freak. Everybody talked about it in the draft when it was him, DeMarcus Cousins. That draft class was loaded. Basically, you could have gotten a starter from pick 1 to 10 and be okay with it. And they picked John Wall. Now, the reason why they picked John Wall is exactly what you guys are saying. What is his ceiling? His ceiling was a Russell
2010 guy.
Like,
poor man's Russell Westbrook.
But the reason why I'm upset by the Wizards in general is when they got Bradley Beal, and everybody was up in arms about getting Bradley Beal. Then we found out Bradley Beal was good. So now you have John Wall and Bradley Beal. What do you put around him? Gortat? You put a Paul Pierce, aging Paul Pierce. You put all these pieces that didn't have, and I understand what Austin's saying. Maybe DC doesn't have the lore of a Miami, a lore of the LAs, or like Golden State. Like, they don't have that. We don't have that kind of like, oh, this is just DC. What, are you going to go see the White House?
You guys are a small market team in a major market.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense because you're a huge market. DC is one of the biggest cities, but you're a small market franchise, as in people go to DC for politics, not for sports.
Exactly. Nobody, and also the fucking stadium is in Chinatown. Like, in Chinatown. Like, I understand that you guys don't know what that means, but it's like Chinatown isn't like the heart of DC, and they share. I mean, they just are not the best team in DC either. So like we root on, like a lot of people root on for the Caps. Nationals, it's a baseball kind of town now. I mean, Redskins are Redskins, whatever. But like if you do not have those free agent kind of impact for these two guys, what is your team? Your team is just dog shit because you're relying on two guys.
But now we're talking about worst franchises since they become the Wizards in '97. So I'm not saying they're a great franchise, but I think we're forgetting there's no way they're the worst, because New Jersey / Brooklyn Nets, they were great in the early 2000s. They got lucky with their draft, but then they were horrible, and then they made the worst trade in the history of sports, period, not just the NBA.
The Kevin Durant,
Kevin Garnett. So the Nets have been worse in aggregate since then. Charlotte's been just complete ass. The Knicks are New York City, Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, everything. They're horrible. They can't get winning teams or free agents to save their lives. So you got already there, and then so you got the Nets that are worse. Charlotte's way worse. New York has every reason to be better. They're worse. Minnesota has had Kevin Love, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. They've had all these high draft picks, and they still can't win. Like they've been bad too. So
you can assemble. Not even Austin. You can assemble all those teams that you've named, and their best team in the era that they were good would be any team that you've thought of, any Wizard lineup.
Exactly.
Any of those teams you thought of, like the Knicks. You bring up the Knicks. The Knicks in 2012 in a 7-game series would wipe the Wizards.
The Melo Amari Stoudemire days would have beat the Gilbert Arenas, Antoine Jameson, Butler Wizards.
Any of those lineups, they would lose to any team franchise that you think.
Yeah, but we're talking about just worst franchise but at least the Wizards are going there was a span there of 05 through 08 with serious injuries and everything that they still made it to the playoffs. They still have managed to keep themselves in the name, except for the last couple of years, the names of going to be in the playoff hunt. They've made a good amount of playoffs in that period. Can't say that for the Knicks. Can't say that for Charlotte. You can't say that. So you have to just look overall, like not just the best teams.
But they do.
Who on the Wizards is a generational superstar?
Well,
name one of
okay.
them.
And that makes them a better. But that makes them a better franchise because they don't have that, and they're still make it to the playoffs. And unlike these guys who do have these generational superstars and still can't even sniff the playoffs.
Well, they're not making the playoffs now because now they were dealt a bad hand. They're dealt a bad hand right now. John Wall's contract is horrendous.
That's not dealt a bad hand. They signed that.
That is dealt a bad.
They've only been to the playoffs in those 8 years. 8 years out of the time that you said. So even if we don't focus on the whole franchise of Washington and we don't go back to the fact that they haven't won 50 games since they were the Bullets in '78. Okay, they've only been to the playoffs 8 times since that '97 range that you're talking
about. And Minnesota's been once.
And the most but that's in a tougher conference with a generational superstar in Kevin Garnett that you could have kept, and a 2-man game with Stephon Marbury that you could have kept. These franchises had these players. You can't tell me that the Wizards have had these players. No. And then Mike, you brought up a great point about Bradley Beal. People think of Bradley. He's great. He was second in the league in shooting at 30.5. He was going to finish. I think he was going to be the scoring champion of the league. And then. But he's not a good shooter. He's not. You think of Bradley Beal, you think off the top of your head, good shooter. The bare minimum, the best he's averaged is a measly 40% from 3. He's not that good of a shooter.
Ellis, hold on. Mike, let me ask you this.
And 36 for this year.
Jesus. All right, Mike, let me ask you this. It's snooty. All right, because as a Steelers fan, I think you would appreciate this too. What makes a better franchise? Something like the Steelers, who last year they didn't have the superstar talent that Ellis keeps talking about that these other franchises have, but they almost made the playoffs. Where the Browns, we had all the superstar talent, but we still weren't even close to making the playoffs. Who's the better franchise?
Okay, in all honesty, that is, and I love you, Austin. Like, football is way different than basketball.
100%. But the point is, it doesn't matter.
You're right.
Ellis is talking about who has the better superstar. I'm not talking about who has the better superstar. I'm talking about who has better teams.
No. Hold on. Maybe we're splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs.
Yeah, we are, because I'm not talking about the best superstar. I'm talking about the franchise that you've had good players. Okay. You can't. I'm not going to bring the front office into these situations because there's a lot of idiotic moves in front offices that to the point where guys like us are like, oh, give us a team, we'll run it better. But what I'm saying is take the front office out of it. From players that have came through, that have been in these franchises. I'm saying you can think of better players for each of these franchises than the Wizards. The best players that these Wizards have had that you're going to put up to me is John Wall, because through the money and through the talent and through everything, you're telling me that John Wall is the generational talent of the Wizards since they've been a franchise. Isn't that the money you give him?
Well, this is the deal. This is also the deal. Yes, you had John Wall and you had Bradley Beal, right? You had to capitalize on their talent. And I understand the contract that they gave him, because at that time he was a generation. Like, he looked like he found his way in the league. He found it. They were making the playoffs day in and day out, like Austin said. But here's why I said they're the worst run franchise in the last 30 years, is because they didn't capitalize on it. They didn't try to bring talent in there. Like when Miami had Dwayne Wade, they couldn't fill up their stadium, but they brought in Shaq. They brought in Jason Williams, White Chocolate, and Antoine Walker. Like, they built around Dwayne Wade. Like, why didn't the Wizards build around John Wall and Bradley Beal like that? Like, you should have at least been, because they weren't in the conversation of these big free agents, because I felt like they just were like, okay, we're good. We're what we have right now. But over here, we have Miami with the big three. We have Carmelo and Amare in New York and all these players. So why the fuck bother? I feel like they just gave up. That's why I was upset with what I saw with the Wizards.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. Me and you are making the same argument right now, just different things of like the overall franchise. Ellis, you keep saying like take the front off. You can't, because we're talking about the overall franchise. They've run themselves not great, but they've run themselves better than other teams. They didn't capitalize all the talent. They're trying to be like a Indiana, where they have Paul George and they just get these other smaller, big name guys. I mean, they're not
Roy Hibbert,
but
Lance Stevenson.
Yeah, they're trying to do that because they don't feel like they can compete. Which again, that is a failure on the franchise side for not even trying to compete, because you are DC. You do have this talent. You do have this money. You do have this market share that you could go for. But I still think there's worse franchises that have been run in the last 30 years, like way worse. Like, you can't tell me the Knicks is not a worse franchise, because the Knicks are the opposite situation.
Not recent. Well, recently, yes, but I'm just saying, like, if we had to take 30 years, like, compared to 30 years, the Knicks.
I think the Knicks are worse. The Knicks have every reason in the world to be great, and they're not. That's a bad franchise. If you have every reason to be great and you're not.
Yeah, let me backtrack from that, because I wanted to backtrack from it, because I didn't mean necessarily forget about the front office, not for the entire argument. I'm saying for Austin's argument of bringing it to me that you've had these players, I'm saying forget the front office for 1 second in that argument of players-wise. Each team for these players had better players that you could put on the court that would beat the Wizards in a 7-game series 10 times out of 10. You can't.
Well, yeah, you're
tell me
talking
about
one specific team. I'm talking about a time period, though. We're talking the last 30 years. Who's been worse?
I'm talking about over the last 30 years. I can get a starting five from each team that you've named that would beat the best starting five from the Wizards in those 30 years.
100%. And then that doesn't make you a good franchise, though.
That tells me that you're the worst franchise. That from your front office, from your
if you just had talent,
the worst players.
Just imagine if LeBron never came back to the Cavs, and the Cavs still suck, but they still had Kyrie Irving, they still had Deion Waiters, they still had LeBron James. And of course, if we created a starting five of everybody in our last 30 years, the Cavs would have been great, but because they still would have sucked.
But let me ask you a question. Austin. When LeBron James came back and they had Kyrie, what was the first move that they make?
Get Kevin Love.
Exactly my point.
Just another body on the court.
But no. Like, Ellis, you joke around, but that's the body that they needed. They needed.
It was huge because he was an experienced guy on a young team.
Exactly.
It's an argument for another day that I hope we bring Austin back in on, because Austin's just another body on the court.
Austin is a permanent host.
But keep going, my bad.
But my point is Cleveland, when they had the chance and they saw their window, they were like, "We're gonna go all in. We're gonna put all."
For the second time.
Well, their second time, yes. But the second time they had a better point guard than Mo fucking Williams. They had
the best point guard in the league at that time.
And then Kevin Love, before he became just a body, he was actually considered one of the best power forwards in the game before they made power forward, small forward, whatever.
Yeah.
He was good, and that's what they needed. And then they adapt around him. They put Mike Miller, James Jones.
They had everybody, yeah. Okay.
Fried. Like, they had the team. Now, do I believe LeBron did a lot for that team? Of course, 100%. But
I can't listen to an argument of taking LeBron out of Cleveland. Like, obviously, the Cavs would be the worst franchise, and they would be the topic of what we're discussing. But
yes,
I can't think of the Cavs with no LeBron.
No, but the reason for me bringing that up was you said, like, oh, you could take out of a starting lineup at any era and beat any Wizards era. You could have done that with the Cavs. You kidding me? LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Deion Waiters. Deion's not even good, but like you could have taken our lineup and still been better than any of the Wizards lineup of that era. But we still would have been a poorly run franchise.
So are you agreeing with what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that
I'm saying yours, but that's not a good argument.
You're talking about the
judging a franchise.
But how is that not a good argument? Because
you got to look at wins. You have to look at wins. You got to look at playoff appearances.
Tell me about wins, though, Austin.
No, you're not. You're looking at only the best players that have played for there in that 30-year period, which makes no sense. No, that's just luck. That's drafting.
We can talk about wins. We can talk about their best span from 14 to 18. They went to the conference semis 3 out of those 4 years, okay? The best wins they had out of those years were the 49 in 2016 to 17. So, okay, you can say that LeBron took him out the playoffs, whatever. But 3 of those 4 years happened in that stage where LeBron came back to Cleveland. And where LeBron came back to Cleveland, and you can say you can bail out a lot of franchises, but I cannot bail out the Wizards in this case. Because those are your best years. Because before that, you didn't go back to the semis until 04-05. And we're talking Agent Zero.
Okay. My final argument on this. From 2000 to 2017, I'm way too lazy to do the math of the last 2 years. So obviously this has changed. But they are nowhere even near. So they are near. They're still top 10 worst. But Minnesota has the least amount of wins, followed by Sacramento, followed by Philadelphia, followed by the Nets, followed by Charlotte, followed by New York, followed by Milwaukee, and then the Wizards. The Wizards are 23rd. Not great.
This is recency bias. This is recency thing.
That's 2017. That's only 6 years missing from this period we're talking about, from 97 to 9. Now, there's only 3 years missing.
But you're talking about a big okay. We're talking about, like you said, a small market, quote unquote, team in a big market. I think we're all saying why they're bad, and I think it's a collective thing. Like, I think like it's an era thing. Like, maybe back then it was the players, but right now the front office is basically toying them around like a bunch of cats. Like, they're fucking around with the franchise. Like, oh, let's just draft this guy and then get this guy. Their biggest free agent signing this year, wasn't it like Trevor Ariza, and they traded him like that?
Yeah.
Like, it's like shit like that, man. And it's just like, it's crazy. And I also think Scott Brooks is not a good coach. I will say it. I think Scott Brooks is not a good coach, which believes me to believe that like he's just an overrated coach. Like, he's just all like, there's so many overrated coaching, so many underrated coaches in the NBA. But like, we can start with Scott Brooks. Is Scott Brooks a good coach? I'm going to say he's very overrated because, like you said, Austin, Oklahoma City at that time was.
You think Scott Brooks is overrated?
100.
I think he's underrated for getting that bare minimum team to 49 wins, even in the Eastern Conference. I think he's underrated.
I think he's overrated. I think till this day, I think.
I just think if you dive into the inner stats of the Wizards and you look at especially why you gave John Wall money, because you give him the contract and it hits in 2019 in a shooting league where you're transitioning to, okay, you need somebody that can hit a jumper, and you say, hey, I'm going to give you 38, 41, 44, 47 over these next 4 years, okay? And it's going to be, I'm giving that to a guy that hasn't even shot over 37% from 3 in his entire career. I'm giving that to a guy that shoots over 40% from the field, but that's all dunks. So I'm in a shooter's league, and I guess in any way I could think of paying him that money is some restitution for saying, hey, thank you for living your days out on the Night's Watch, aka thank you for being a Wizard all these years, take all this money. But it comes down to, if you aren't getting the free agents, and that's to argue with you, Mike, if you aren't getting the free agents, why aren't you getting the free agents? You think it's because they don't want to play in Washington? No, I think it's because you look at Bradley Beal, you look at John Wall, and what future do you have in that basketball? You don't have much. I mean, Bradley Beal is thriving because there's no John Wall. Other than that, from the shooting percentages and all, nothing is going to tell me that if John Wall's in the lineup, he's going to be second in shooting. He's going to be in the conversation for leading the league and being the scoring champion. He's not. He's not going to average over 30. and that's what I'm saying. There's no future in that basketball, especially when your best players aren't even winning your win share. That's the saddest part of it.
I know.
We're talking about coaching, Ellis. Dang, dude, did you miss the transition?
No, my man had to get his point out, and I feel in all honesty with the Wizards, it's we're gonna see what happens. I mean, Bradley Beal is a bona fide superstar, and I can't lie. But Ellis does bring up a good point. You need versatility, aka what the Lakers have, what the Milwaukee Bucks have. Like they can kill you from any position on the court. And that again goes to what I'm saying with coaching as well. Like how does coaching in my mind, like people want to give and he's a great example. Steve Kerr, all the credit for Golden State. When Mark Jackson did the same fucking thing.
No, he didn't. Steve Kerr's a good. I think Steve Kerr's appropriately rated. If we're talking about overrated,
appropriately rated.
I still think
Steve Kerr is a terrible coach.
Scott Brooks is middle of the road. Steve Kerr is not, dude.
Steve Kerr's the difference between coach.
But he's the one that opened up that floor for them and gave them let them do what they want.
Mark Jackson opened the floor.
My point is with Steve Kerr. Okay, you have Steph Curry, you have Klay Thompson, you have Draymond, and all three of them at their peak of their powers, and all you have to do is be like, oh shit, all we need is an Andrew Bogut, and fuck it, let's bring Andre Iguodala into the picture, who is actually a defensive monster against LeBron in that one finals, and it's just like, fuck it, all I have to do is watch Steph Curry cook everybody on the court and fucking throw it to Klay Thompson in the wing, and Klay Thompson hits a three. I mean, there's some coaching involved. Yes, I'm not taking that away, but this man being called probably the second best coach behind Greg Popovich is
terrible.
Ridiculous.
Well,
terrible.
He's a similar coach though, as in Greg Popovich, where Greg Popovich doesn't coach X and O's. He's not a huge X and O's guy. He just understands how to manage a team and manage everybody's like ego and things of that nature. That's what Greg Popovich does best. Is he gets talent. He gets talent to buy into his system, and he just lets them execute it.
But
that's why when he's gone, people are able to fill in because he's not a big XOs guy. He's not Brad Stevens. He's not any of those where every play we're breaking down.
The Spurs' success, though, I think people don't talk about it enough. It isn't more so coaching. It's more so in the scouting department. It's the first team where you look at, especially from that high of a level in basketball, where you're like, man, you're taking your scouting, you're going to these places, you're putting together a team that fits with this person and fits with that person. You didn't have to go out, especially at those times. You didn't have to go out and go get Manu. You didn't have to go out and get Tony Parker. You didn't have to get any of those guys.
Well,
I think a lot of that is scouting, and Pop is a genius, but I think a lot of that isn't coaching so much. It's more so scouting.
Yeah, but
which is a good point of the scheme.
But okay, so take the finals where they played the Heat for the second time, and obviously I'm a Heat fan, so I remember this fondly. The way that they took from the last finals that they lost to what they did when they came back around again, and how that Greg Popovich put Thiago Splitter and Boris Diaw, and how he put them on the floor. Like it's not about Tim Duncan, it's not about Tony Parker, it's not about Manu, or even at that time Kawhi. It was the other pieces around them. It was like how he maximized their talent in the position that they were in. Like when they took Bosch off the floor, all I saw was Thiago Splitter go down the fucking court and attack Shane Battier, because Shane Battier had no chance against Splitter. And it wasn't even Tim Duncan, because Tim Duncan was like on his last leg basically. So it was like, that's why I like Greg Popovich, and I understand the scouting, but Greg Popovich in the summer league probably saw these players and was like, I know how to put these players together with the Tim Duncans, with the Tony Parkers. And that's what I revere most. Steve Kerr had the four guys that he wanted. He had the four main guys, and then around them, they're like, oh, Andrew Bogut, all right, bring him in. or fucking who was it at the time? JaVale McGee, bring him in. Like they brought in the bodies that you said, Ellis, and all that they did was ride the coattails of Curry, Thompson, and Green, and then
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you guys then, like, to get into it instead of just talking about two. Oh, you might not think he's up there, like he's as good as people say he is, but those are two of the best coaches in the league. Period. Even if you think he's overrated, he's still obviously a very good coach.
Steve Kerr?
Who do you think? Yeah, who do you think is underrated though in the league though?
Underrated coach
doesn't get talked about enough.
In all honesty, I think it's I forgot his name. The coach for the Nuggets.
Oh, Mike Malone.
Yeah,
Mike Malone is good, and I think because you think about it, Jamal Murray and like Djokovic, all of them are good players, yes, but like they're in there, like they're the second best team in the West before this whole coronavirus was. He has them buying in. Even before then, they drafted Michael Porter Jr. Like he knows how to put his players in place, and I think he's really, really good. And I really think, I don't know who else.
No, I like that.
I think underrated Monty Williams. When you look at, especially with Phoenix and the franchise they are as a whole, abysmal, as everybody knows. I think for Monty Williams to go out, especially as a revered coach around the league, as a guy that multiple star players want to play with, and be like, hey, I want to go to Phoenix, and you go to Phoenix and you're letting these players blossom. I think Devin Booker is having one of the best seasons. That All-Star snub really hurt because think about it from years past. You would have thought to yourself on an All-Star snub, you'd be like, Devin Booker, who gives a fuck you didn't make it to the All-Star game? Like, you guys are the worst team in the league. No one cares about you. But I think when Monty Williams comes in, it brings a different type of culture. It's like, okay, Devin Booker didn't make the All-Star game, but they're playing good basketball. You know, people want to watch this stuff. People want to. I think that was I kind of laughed about that, especially during All-Star weekend, because I was like, people are really arguing about a Suns player not making the All-Star game.
But
when is this gonna happen? But I think for Monty Williams, it's good.
My man Charles Barkley said it best. It's like nobody watches Phoenix basketball, and that's why he probably got snubbed. Like, who watches this Phoenix Sun basketball games? I'm telling you.
I like that.
West is stacked, though. West is
stacked. No.
What about you, Austin? Who's your underrated coach?
All right, so I don't think he's underrated as in if you know the league, you like him. I just don't think he gets enough love. But Rick Carlisle, what he's done in Dallas,
Rick Carlisle has been doing his thing for a long
years.
time.
And
that is one good. That's a good one, Austin.
And I think people just forget about him. I don't think anybody denies he's a bad coach. And then I just got to throw it in there too. My boy Ty Lue. He was a good coach, dude.
Ty Lue.
Tyler was a good coach.
He was.
A lot of people were up in arms, but you're gonna play the best players you had right there,
dude. The reason he left, because I was there. I was working for the Cavs at the time when this all went down last season.
Brag.
He left.
Yeah. This cloud is brought to you by Four Quarters Radio.
Yeah, but like he. I think he just lost I think it was the same thing of what happened why Kevin Love got mad is the franchise lied to them saying like, we're going to try to win. We're going to try to do this. And then they clearly didn't. So Ty Lue didn't care. Trust me. What's his Austin Carr? Annoying as hell. I don't like him as a radio announcer. He's so annoying. But we were talking, not me. Sorry. I was next to the conversation when he was talking to Ahmad, the in-arena host, the Pump Man. And they were talking about it, and Ahmad's like, and this was early in the season, only like 2 games in, and he's like, be honest, like, how bad is this year gonna be? And Austin Carr's like, oh, like, Ty Lue doesn't care, like, he lost the team because he doesn't care because he's mad about the front office. It's like Kevin Love is with Ty Lue, and they're mad at the front office, which is why when Ty Lue ended up getting fired, you did see the veterans, the Jordan Clarksons, everybody that was on the team before get so mad because they're like, no, this guy's actually a good coach. You're just not giving him the talent to win. So I think he's a good coach that's underrated just because, he's just an assistant right now. And then I also think that Quinn Snyder with Utah, can't really go wrong with that. That Utah teams always seem to be better than what their talent was. So that's why I think that.
But I also have a strange theory about Utah. I'm glad you bring that up, Austin. The strange theory about Utah, and it's players blossom in Utah because of the lack of media outlet out there. Like, you look at Darren Williams and like Carlos Boozer, and you're like, man, like, why the hell? Like, Carlos Boozer, especially, you watching him with the Cats in the early years, you never thought that he'd blossom into what you saw at the Jazz. You're like, it gets this guy off the fucking court. I used to look at him, I was like, why are him and Drew Gooden playing?
No, I get what you're saying, but like but that doesn't. When it comes to the playoff, everybody's under the same microscope, and Utah is just consistently, even when they lose
players,
their superstar, quote unquote superstar, and Gordon Hayward, he's not a superstar, but obviously he was their superstar. They lost him. They draft well with Donovan. They get him, and here they are again, just being a 4 or 5 seed in a very, very good West every year.
And that's what I'm saying. Look at that. Like, especially for a rookie. If I was a rookie, I'd love to get drafted by the Jazz because there's no media. Like, you would be less of the center of attention. Like Donovan Mitchell, he fucking goes crazy because he's a good ass player. But look, the media attention out there, I'd love to be a part of the Utah Jazz.
The Utah Jazz is great.
Yeah. Being part of the Utah Jazz, like, you would never get like the media out there. You would be living fucking life. All you're doing out there is playing ball. But also, I gotta give a shout out, like, on the side, to one of the worst coaches in the league, Luke Walton.
Yes, I have him on my list.
A stat that most people don't like. One thing that tells me that you're just an utterly terrible coach is your win percentage against teams that are over 500. When he was at the Lakers, one of the worst that they've ever had in franchise history. I think it goes with some of the worst coaches they've had. Luke Walton, he's not like I love this NBA season because there's funny moments that you can look back on, and I think one of the best ones was when he left Buddy Hield on the bench after the 3-point contest, and the fan was like, "What the fuck are you doing? You got the 3-point champion. You got the 3-point champion on the bench. You guys need a 3-point shot."
Luke Walton, like some of these coaches, they get they get these coaching jobs because they get vouched by other players, and like some of them suck ass. Like Luke Walton is one of them. Like literally, Luke Walton was Kobe's jockstrap.
As bad as a player as he was, as bad as a player as he was a coach.
You just got to think of the Sacramento Kings last year. They showed so much promise. They showed
so much promise.
Fox looked like somebody we've never, like Russell Westbrook, but bigger, like taller, and he might have a better shot. Like you didn't know you're like, dude, this guy's gonna be huge. And then, like, literally, how does Luke Walton get that job? When you look at who was out there, Ty Lue, who we just talked about, was out there. Jason Kidd, who I actually think is overrated. He's on my overrated list, but still, he's better than Luke Walton. You had so many good coaches, better. All right, I wouldn't say good, but you had so many better options than Luke Walton. And then they give it to him early.
They should have hired my man Fizdale. Fizdale never actually got a good chance. I like Fizdale. He should have gotten another chance.
I like him.
Fizdale had that. He had that old Yeller job.
God damn!
Would they give the minority coaches in the NFL? To take you out back.
The Rooney Rule.
Wait, this is why I fucking love. Like, I know this is all for basketball, but why I fucking love Brian Flores. It's because they give him the old Yeller job, and he just said, "Fuck it, I'm about to win some games on you guys." And he won some games. That's why I love Brian Flores. But yeah, Fizdale had the old Yeller job.
All right, let me ask you guys this then, because this coach, everybody seems to love him, and I don't. And I maybe I'm just wrong on this by saying he's overrated, or maybe it's just recency bias that people are starting to love him. But Mike D'Antoni all of a sudden is becoming people are thinking of him as a great coach because of what's going on in Houston. But I think he's awful.
No, we touched on that in the last pod.
Austin, you are awesome. You are awesome for bringing this up because I've been saying it since the Phoenix Suns days that this dude is an absolute cuckbag. That he is legit is. He has been in every good situation since the beginning of time with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. With Carmelo,
those teams were.
He's fucked up some good years.
Yeah,
he's fucked up a lot of good years, and I still don't understand why people give him a job because it's like, oh, I understand. Like they went to everybody is like, oh, those Kobe and Shaq years, those Kobe and Gasol years. Oh, the Miami Big Three. No, dude, like you literally couldn't coach worth shit. Like you just have
No,
good.
He's a one-trick pony. It's literally sprint down there, shoot the ball.
The 30
all
seconds,
right.
it's 10 seconds or less. I mean, sorry. Not
Like,
No, and the best part was when I really realized D'Antoni was really bad. Like I was like always on the fence about it, and I was like maybe like his offense approach is smart because you could just outscore anybody on a good day. But then when I
not in the
realized
playoffs.
really when I realized he was trash is when Chris Paul went down and they had that lead, and it was like okay. If Chris Paul goes down, you have to start focusing on defense. Like Harden's going to give you an X amount of production, but you've lost entire production. You got to do something on defense. And the man played basketball like Chris Paul was still on the floor. And I was like, what the hell are you doing?
All right, one more controversial coach that I'll throw in there, which, again, he's more revered than almost every coach in the league. I don't like Doc Rivers. I think he's overrated. I think he's had great talent.
Wow.
I think he's had great talent. Now, I don't think he's awful. I just think I think people look at him and they throw him in that class with the Popovich. They throw him in such elite company when he's got one finals win. He had great teams. He's had great teams in Boston. And I get that, from 2000 to 2015, arguably was the best 15 years in basketball just because there was a new champion basically every other year. There were super teams, but there were people perennially winning it like there were in the 80s, 90s, and now. But from that time, he still only had one championship. He coached the most overrated team of all time in the Boston Celtics those couple years. And then also even with the Clippers, he had great teams and they just were never able to do it.
Yeah,
overrated Austin.
And he fought. No, Austin proves a great point because it falls into the you only need one effect, and you only need one effect is like the Brett Favre's in the world. Where
yes,
like,
if he lost,
you just
that
get
finals,
you get one championship, and it's like you're the best player in the world. But if you didn't have that one championship, people would be like, "Dude, you fucking suck. You're not that good."
So why do you guys think? I pose this question. So I 100% agree with Austin. I don't think he should be in the same categories as like a Popovich. But he's still a good coach. Like I think he's a good coach. Like
he's gonna go down, and I don't know what it is. I don't have the stats for him, but he's gonna probably finish top 3, top 5 all time, winning percentages, winning most wins all time because he's had great teams.
Why do you guys call him like? Why do you guys? I think what you're saying is Doc shouldn't be that high. You're not saying like, oh,
no,
Tyler
I don't think it's bad.
Coach and Doc is bad. That's not what you're saying.
No. I'm not saying Doc is bad. I'm saying that people, and it could just be the fact that people ride that 08 Celtics team so much, and the big three, like they ride them so hard, and everybody always attributes it to Doc. Oh, Doc did this. I'm like, great, he got one championship, but you had 3 of the most talented players in the league at the time on that team. You got one championship out of it, and then also you had a great team in the West, and you got no championship. You didn't even make it to the finals of the West. And you ran into the Spurs, aging Spurs. They were good. They were great. They won 2 finals, but like you couldn't even crack it. Like I don't know. I just don't think.
No, I'm with you for that because I think the stain on Doc Rivers' career is when Ballmer takes over, and he makes him GM coach. The GM coach thing never works out, and it never really works out, especially when you're like you're taking over a GM coach team that you don't really have that great of like championship caliber talent already on your team, and then you have to go out and get that team when you're the coach already. It's just a conflict of powers to my mind. Like, okay, I know what I need to win a championship, but I'm also your coach because I'm also going to have to bench you because I know what needs to win it. Like, I think Doc always knew what it took to winning Los Angeles, especially playing with the Clippers. But from that coach standpoint, you couldn't necessarily go out and get those players because you're going to let a lot of players down. Especially in Bill, like, I mean, in the NFL, like you look at it in Bill O'Brien, like you only make it work with Bill Belichick, but especially in the NBA, you can't make the GM and coach thing work.
Let me ask you guys this then. If he doesn't win one with this, not obviously this year, because this year seems like it's going to be washed. We don't know what's going to happen. But let's say this team, let's see, the Cavs lasted 3 years, Heat 4 years. So I guess the Warriors lasted 4 or 5 years. So let's just say the next 5 years, if they don't win a NBA Finals, that's going to be a huge stain on his career, correct? with this team?
100%.
Who?
The reason
With the
why
Clippers?
With Doc, yes.
the reason why they brought in Kawhi and Paul George is
to compete.
To compete with them. And then you brought
but
in
you
Doc
don't realistically
Rivers
have the vision of winning until
But I said the
LeBron's
next
gone.
5 years. Next 5 years. LeBron's not. The next 5
Next
years.
5?
Yeah.
No, because you can't even say the next 5 because those guys like you, Kawhi, my man's not.
You gotta be able to beat a 40-year-old LeBron to be.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, if you have Kawhi Leonard, who's gonna go down as probably the top 3 best two-way players of all time, and you're not gonna win a championship.
And
you can't be that legendary of a coach.
All those other players. You have a PG, you have a Patrick Beverly, you have those players.
You're in LA. You're gonna get so many free agents availability to get it. If Doc Rivers doesn't win one in the next 5 years, I'm sorry, it's over.
It's
shut
over.
the book on him.
You guys make the old LeBron sound so bad. He's on rest.
It's not that we think
it's not LeBron. It's the fact that the Clippers should be better. LeBron's one player.
Kawhi is younger and he's a two-way star. Yes. Okay. Now LeBron is old. I understand. He's not bad. He's still LeBron. Whatever. I'm just saying. Here's the deal. You need to beat him one time to be and win a championship. You should be able to do that one time. I see what Austin's saying.
Yeah, Dwayne Casey got freaking fired for not being able to beat LeBron with a much lesser team. If the fact of that Doc Rivers, who is this revered coach, can't take this Clippers future that it looks like now. Obviously, the team could blow up, and next year could all be different. But right now, what they got with Kawhi, what they got Paul George, what they got with all these young players on their team, if they can't make the moves, especially because, like you said, Ellis, he's like GM too. If he can't make these moves to
he's not GM
get over,
anymore.
whatever, he's still gonna have huge say in everything. If he can't coach a team with that kind of talent to beat not just LeBron, just anybody, to beat the whole league and win a championship within the next 5 years, I think that just goes to prove the point that he's not that good of a coach overall. I think he's a good person. I think he's a good manager of talent, like a good like he's good with egos. He's very good with that. Like players love him. He's a player's coach. But I think you can't say he's one of the best coaches like he's revered right now if he can't take these next teams there within the next 5 years, which goes to the point of me saying that he's overrated. That was it. Just had to circle back to
that. Oh, man. But no, I mean, like we talk about the NBA all the time, but I mean, honestly, I think we have a bigger problem than the NBA. I think we have, if you guys haven't seen it yet, this is a free promo to watch the documentary Scheme on HBO about Christian Dawkins, basically is the middleman in the whole paying coaches, paying players kind of NCAA kind of FBI case. It was awesome. I know all three of us watched it and kind of helped me put, again, more cards on the table saying the NCAA is probably the most crooked organization of all of sports, not just college, in all of sports. They fucking blow. The reason why is because of amateurism, that they can't pay the players because they have to do it for the love of the game and all this shit and blah, blah, blah. And Christian Dawkins basically was just trying to help those kids make it. And he had an AAU team. He was connected to all the coaches, all the players, and the FBI used him and his business to get closer to those to those college coaches. So I just want to hear, Ellis, I'll throw it to you first. What'd you think about the documentary? What's the biggest takeaway and all that stuff?
I think the biggest takeaway was really how powerful the NCAA is. I think the NCAA, if you really watch the documentary and you see what's going on, I think the NCAA caught wind of the investigation. They really definitely caught wind of the investigation. We're allowed to spoil it on here, right? We're gonna spoil it.
I mean if you don't want, spoiler alert if you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean,
it was huge news from a couple years ago, so it's not that big a spoiler.
Hopefully you watch it, but not to spoil or anything. And for Christian, when he was going about it, you could tell that the NCAA, they caught on to the investigation, and with the FBI agent dropping out of the investigation with the misconduct and stuff like that, I feel like there was a secret battle going on between the FBI and the NCAA as to where the NCAA kind of put their dick on the fucking table. And they're like, this is how you're going to take it. And you're not going to go through with this case. You're not going to charge our coaches. Because in the long run, you wanted to get a bribery case and get these coaches and be like, oh, the NCAA is this big scandal, blah, blah, blah. But it has nothing to do with paying players and their fandom, like their fame and their fandom and what they get. It's more so nowadays on how people recruit. There's only an X amount of good players in the nation. There's only a good amount of players that are going to get you publicity, and you're going to pay those players. Like, there's none of those players that are stepping up to the line. And you're like, okay, if I'm not going to get paid, I'm going to go to Kentucky and go to this hotel room that's like a dorm room, whatever. Well, you're getting paid. And I think the grand scheme of it all was it's more of the scouting, and what we talked about earlier is the corruptions in scouting. It's not in paying the players when they get there, it's paying the players before they even get to the campus. And that's a bigger problem that you have to deal with, because it's even before you're getting to the NCAA and all that. That's even a bigger ordeal. And I think that when they started messing with that and they started to realize that, I think the NCAA literally just flexed their girth and they're like, back the fuck up.
Basically, yeah. So I guess it goes back to what I was thinking too, because they had distinct audio from Christian talking to Sean Miller from Arizona and Will Wade from LSU. So basically, what they were both saying was like, we'll get a recruit at all costs because they are those programs that people want to see win and all that stuff. And it was those audios were very telling, saying like they're willing to pay somebody above the NBA veterans minimum, like all this stuff. And I was like, holy shit, like these kids are making bread off playing. But the biggest thing is the reason why is because these premier programs are getting money from the shoe companies, from Under Armour to Nike to Reebok, Adidas.
Yeah.
All of
that
them
that Under Armour UCLA deal was
insane. 200 million.
280 million, dude.
Like, come on.
80 million.
That just showed like they're all plugged in together. The shoe companies, the NCAA, the college programs that are premier. Because it's funny, they made a good point. Take Western Michigan or even our University of Akron team. If they did anything in that capacity of what Will Wade and Sean Miller did, our programs would be kicked off campus.
Oh, like, death penalty, SMU all over again.
Oh my God! But because it was Arizona, because it was LSU, they all nothing but a slap on the wrist, maybe a fine. The only person they took like actual action on was Rick Pitino because of the whole whores and scandals case, and like they survived that. Rick Pitino just had to leave because he had too much heat because of the recruiting and the whole scandal.
Mike, you proved such a great point. That's the thing that blows my mind, and it should blow everyone's mind, is the Rick Pitino, like especially the Rick Pitino scandal. You bring in these kids that are having sex with people for 4 years to get them to campus. You only punish the coach. You never punish the university. You victimize the university. You say that this coach exploited the university and they exploited the resources, but you never punish the university at all. You never do, because it comes to a point where you never fuck with these corporations, NCAA, that are $1 billion. Like, you never fuck with $1 billion corporation ever.
Well, I think all this does proves though how corrupt the NCAA is, which is everybody knows. That's no shocker, but like. What they got it. I mean, how does the NCAA punish them when they know they're the ones that allow it to go with? I think this comes into like close to like the steroid issue what happened with the MLB. That the only way to truly solve what's happening in the NCAA is to get actual politics and regulation involved. But that's never going to happen because they're just simply too powerful. So I think
the problem is they made a good point. Take Google or Microsoft, for example. They go to all these different schools. They pick the best STEM students in the world. They are like, okay, come intern for us. We'll pay you $20,000, and then once you finish, we'll pay you the actual amount of money. They're revered. They're like, oh, great for Microsoft, great for Amazon, great for Apple, whatever. You do that in basketball, and people are up in arms because they should play for the love of the game because of amateurism. And it's something the NCAA put in place because of advertisements in their games, advertisements in the NCAA tournaments to make money off these kids who don't have anything. Some of these kids are fighting for their lives half the time, and they have to do the one and done shit because of what the NBA and what the NCAA came together to make sure both are getting, quote unquote, their bread. So.
No, that's what goes to what I'm saying, though. Is the NCAA is never going to fix it. They as much as they, quote unquote, slap the wrists of people, they're so disappointed. They're not disappointed. They knew what's going on. They're profiting off it. They don't care. That's why I said the only way anything ever changes is if government regulation gets involved, but that's just not going to happen.
No, nothing. And this is what I'm going to end my argument on, because nothing's ever going to change. Because if you ever, I don't know if you guys ever saw that graphic that went around Twitter the other day, that LSU's profits and losses, and the profits were football 56 million, men's basketball 1.6 million, baseball close to 600K, and then the rest of them were deficits, like $1 million deficits, and each other sport that wasn't football, basketball, or baseball.
Ellis,
so exactly.
I'm sure Mike could back me up because he was a sport management minor. We learned this quite often in sport management. Every single college, except for about 5 of them, run in the red. Nobody's profits. The only people that profit are basically Ohio State, Texas, LSU, USC, Alabama, Auburn, like those huge ones. So there's like maybe 10. Everybody else runs in the red. The University of Akron, even Cincinnati, who's a big school, much bigger than Akron, they're still running in the red. They're still running deficits of multiple millions of dollars. So everybody runs in the red except for those people, those few elite programs, which is why the NCAA is going to let them do whatever they want, because they're bringing in so much money. Well, compared to, I mean, think, what's a TV spot for Akron Kent going to cost? Like a couple $1,000s? What's a TV ad for Ohio State, Michigan?
A couple $1,000. The worst part about it is this shit costs more than that. It's a sad thing.
What is for comparison? I don't have stats in front of me. I'm just showing off like that it's going to be a lot. So yeah, it's just NCAA is corrupt. All this documentary proved was how messed up. Or I mean, honestly, it depends on your point of view if you think it's messed up or not. But a majority of the people think it's messed up. I think it's wrong that there's no regulation in it. That like it's it's all under the table. That's how like the Rick Pitino thing happens, is when you just let everything be under a table, anything can happen. Where if we just kind of regulated it and made it not professional, but you did a little bit better, you're going to stop what happened in Louisville, what happened in Baylor football. That was awful. It just happens everywhere in different sports in the NCAA.
Well, they just, like you said, it's an under the table kind of job because of the regulations that the NCAA put in place, and they will never. And like you said, we did learn that the top programs, when we have that, what the fuck is that?
Is there a bird in there, Ellis?
No, that's part of being a dad. Aubrey's got her squeaky toy. She's walking around with it. That's my fault, boys.
No, you're good. So
dog
I was saying,
life.
like if I had a kid, and if I ever have a son that is good enough to play basketball at the collegiate level, and he's like to me, Dad, what should I do? Should I go straight to the NBA? If I ever have a son like this, or should I go one and done? I'll look at him and be like, listen, if you want to make money now, we'll go to New Zealand like fucking LaMelo and Hampton, and we'll get you back when you're 18, 19 years old, and we'll come right back. Because Luka Doncic basically killed everybody by saying that he learned to play at an elite level overseas. And it just shows that we don't need the NCAA. The only thing we need the NCAA is education. And that these kids, even though they are meant to go there for 1 year and they're leaving, because Zion knew he was going to the league, RJ Barrett knew he was going to the league, DeAndre Ayton knew he was going to the league. So why waste the time and cut the time? The NCAA wants their money. That's it.
Not just that. So like the argument of like, would you rather go overseas or playing? Honestly, if I was them and I knew if I was Zion, I knew I was going to get my money either way. Of course, I'm going to go to college. One, these college programs are, like we were talking about how elite they are. they're way better than any Australian basketball league is, or even once the G League does become like you could skip and go play in the G League for a year. You ever go to a Canton Charge games? Those games are pathetic. I'd rather play college basketball than go play there, because at least college basketball, I'm taking private jets everywhere. I'm in multi-million-dollar facilities that all these ex-players, made. I'm playing for Duke. I'm playing in front of millions of people in March Madness instead of going to play overseas. Sure, they're going to pay me $20,000 a year to go play overseas, or even if it's $200,000 a year. Cool, whatever. I will take any loans, or I'll not make money. I'll go on a full ride to college and just go make millions of dollars next year and have that better experience overall. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just still go to college because they're better.
All right. Well, I mean, I feel like we beat a dead horse with this.
No,
I feel like
not even beat a dead horse. I just want to get that last in, Mike. I have a question. It's a morality question for anybody that watches college sports or anything, especially for colleges. If a kid, especially a kid that wanted to play college basketball, if a kid that wanted to play college basketball got recruited and he was like, okay, I committed to Duke. All right, I have a family issue, and I can't really come to Duke anymore because I want to take care of my family. Like, it's an emergency. Like, I need to go to the league. I need money for my family. If he were to ask Duke, hey, will you give me a couple business class? Like, I'm not going to go to this university, but I committed there. Will you give me a couple business classes? Will you just help me out? Like, I want to go to the league. I want to do well for my family. Are they going to do that for him?
Yeah.
Well, for sure.
100%.
That's what I'm saying. So they care about the athlete.
Well, they care about, like, they made a good point in the documentary. It's like the coaches that paid for their players are good guys because clearly they cared about their kids well enough to make sure that they were all right. Yes, they did it in their own mindset of, like, if I have this kid, they're going to do well for my program, but they also paid for their family to be okay, for them to be okay, for them to have a life in the college campus. So,
and that's
if you guys haven't seen the documentary, please go look at The Scheme. So please go look at the documentary in The Scheme on HBO. It is out right now. If you have HBO or HBO Now or Go, please go look it up. It's great. Boys, this was a great episode. Please follow Ellis and Austin on Instagram and Twitter. They will be posting up on the Four Corners accounts of the episode. This episode was recorded now on Friday, but it will be out on Monday. Boys, always stay safe. This was
stay safe, baby.
Four Corner Studio. We like to give a shout out. Go listen to all our other podcasts from Face of the Franchise, Last Nice Guys, Bread and Butter, Free Therapy, Hoopin-N-Hollerin, Degenerates, Star Us, as well as Five Holers. Thank you for rocking with us. Habibis, one love. Stay safe, stay breezy, stay easy.
And people should flex the NCAA for more things.
What the hell does that even mean? What's that even mean?
Flex the NCAA for more things. Don't just get that scholarship.
What is in your hand?
Keep getting more.
Is that mustard?